Welcome to our first Sunday school for February of 2023. We are doing a study on the age of the patriarchs. We are currently in the year 1695, and we are in Genesis chapter 32. I'd like to find your way over there while I get our preamble out the way. So, as always, the Word of God is our ultimate authority and source, trumping all else. We are getting some background information on the nations that the Lord's people are dealing with, courtesy of Egyptologist David Roll, an agnostic who sees that the Bible history is accurate, who, when he saw some errors in the accepted chronology of Egypt and the other nations whose timelines are based on that, he makes those fixes and he sees, wait a minute, everything lines up right with the Bible, which never had to change. Imagine that. So pretty cool stuff. And we'll actually be talking a little bit more about that in today's class if we get there. So here in the year 1695, time frame of Genesis chapter 32, we are in the Middle Bronze Age. So who are the powers that be in the nations that be at this time? Over in China, we have their first dynasty, the Xia dynasty, being led out of the capital city we know today as Anyang. And their emperor right now is a gentleman by the name of Fa. He's the emperor of the Xia dynasty, one of the last ones. And we'll see the fall of the Xia dynasty as we go. Closer to home for the Israelites, who aren't Israelites yet. They're still just the family of Isaac and Jacob, and now Judah and Joseph and all the kin. Over here in Egypt, that's the wrong Senuseret. We want this one. Senuseret, not 2, he's dead now. We want Senuseret 3. There we go. So that is number 92. May update that. So Senuseret 3 is the Pharaoh of Egypt. He is in their 12th dynasty, their middle kingdom. The old kingdom with the pyramids was hundreds of years ago, so those have been around for a while now. Senuseret III is ruling solo at this point in time, and we noticed in our last class how, unlike previous images of the pharaoh, his are a bit more somber looking. His ears are larger and protruding out and listening. His eyes are sunken and hollow. His smile is actually an upside down one. He's a bit of a frown and grimace got going on there. So some things happen during his time frame that connect absolutely with the Word of God. Yes, please.
Do you think that those were exaggerations, like you said, ears that are listening, or do you think those were actual physical traits that they were?
I think it's a combination. Great question. Was it a case of this just happened to be how he really looked, or were they exaggerating because of the things that happened during his time as Pharaoh? And I think either way, what's really significant is the departure from what they did before, how it was idealized before, and now either it's a dramatic change because now it's a lot more realistic, or it's, even if it's a little more exaggerated, it's exaggerated because of the real things that he went through. And so
He's done during his reign, or
both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he would have had like final say over what he looked like, right?
Some of that too, yes.
So
Don't draw a picture of the king that makes him mad. Right.
You see a picture of yourself, really look like that?
The camera adds a few pounds.
Oh.
Can you imagine being an artist in Egypt saying, Pharaoh Senuseret, which of course those are Greek versions of the names they did call them. But anyway, Senuseret III, the marble adds a few pounds.
When you see so many of the other pieces like this, they do kind of look all the same.
Yeah.
At least I can't detect any differences. And obviously the people that did this were artisans, right? I mean, I couldn't take a hunk of rock or granite or whatever that is and carve a sculpture out of it. I can't even do that with Play-Doh, when I was growing up.
I can't draw the same stick figure twice.
And so that is an interesting thing to be aware of, because he does look somber.
Oh yeah.
He looks heavy lidded. His lids are heavy, so yeah, I mean, is it a reflection of, because, well, like when you see the presidents, they'll show different presidents at the start of their term and then at the end of their term, and those 4 years, there's a noticeable change because of.
Yeah.
So,
Your eyes look great.
Yeah.
yeah.
As Indiana Jones said, it's not the years, it's the mileage.
Not like, biblical, but.
No, it's,
Interesting.
It is.
well, the Bible's reality, so it is reality. Yeah, Sister Peggy.
No, actually was talking about, you don't want to make King mad, or what you said about the picture that reminded me of that happened to Winston Churchill.
Yes, we saw that in The Crown.
By a man that does royal pictures, and he burned it. He was so insulted. But that he caught really what Winston Churchill looked like. And he hated the fact that he goes, you made me look old.
No life did that. No, England did that to you. Yeah.
History buff of
Yeah.
Winston Churchill. I like the dude.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, you know how much that
Yeah. Yeah.
be hanging someplace in the castle.
And get soup thrown on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have pictures of myself that I hate. I mean, because I have like a face.
Yeah.
And, or I'm looking at someone and it looks like I'm, looking at them, Sister Carolyn, you took one time at the Christmas party.
Not your fault.
She was snapping pictures and she showed it to me. And I was like, I look like I'm angry, but I wasn't.
You're passionate and expressive.
Just a portrait like that, because I am not photogenic and I don't like any of my pictures. But having a statue of yourself that you can't tear down.
How do you airbrush that?
And I'd be like.
That's gonna outlast you.
Part of the biblical men at this time, whatever time period we're studying, why aren't there any carvings of Abraham or Jacob or
They
Isaac?
weren't.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Oh, stay tuned.
So you can't reveal his secret.
I will. I'll reveal a couple of things. Senuseret the third, we'll get to you real quick here, Brother Clay. Senuseret the third will add his son to co-reign with him. That became a practice, as we've seen in the 12th dynasty, when the first pharaoh got assassinated. His son became king at Pharaoh after dealing with a palace coup. So, okay, we're going to do a new thing here where we bring on the sons before the dad dies. So it's a very smooth transition and all that stuff. So sons would be brought on to co-reign. Pretty much the sons would be the ones in charge while the dad kind of was in semi-retirement. And anyway, didn't happen with his dad. Senuseret II died, and then Senuseret III here became king. Well, he would bring that practice back, bring on his son Amenemhat III, who would be Joseph's pharaoh. While Senuseret III, his dad, was still alive. What he experienced was the famine during his reign, and we've got secular records of all of this, and we'll get to that. We have a statue of Joseph that we will get to when we get to, because of his blessings through God to Egypt. Yeah, it's in the Patterns of Evidence movie. Yeah, he was second in command. He was the vizier. Yeah.
Which is it that the king, I don't remember which king it was, he died, but his son was terrible, and
Down.
made in his life, but it was a proud and I think he even had it taken to the temple.
You're probably talking about Hezekiah's son
Yes.
Manasseh,
Yes.
who had a incredibly beautiful and miraculous conversion when he got captured.
It was so arrogant.
Yeah, and it was because of him leading Judah astray that kind of led to the ultimate downfall. And even though he got converted, unfortunately, his negative influence was so great that his positive influence afterwards wasn't enough. The nation didn't follow him into turning back to God as much. So, yeah. there's definitely impact. Brother Clay, thank you for your patience.
It really wasn't, no, we're just gonna, ask it if, that's more realistic, and I don't know what after this time passed, after the time, other pharaohs or whatever started looking more realistic or went back to the same thing, they all
Stay tuned.
They all look the same, but I was wondering if there might have, been another blood mixed in. Like, to me, he has a little bit of Filipino traits. Like, maybe he did, but, that's not, whatever. But you have his bloodline, but there's still, like, where's his mom, right? So, I was just thinking that might be, could be something along that line, people migrating and.
No, that's a great point. Remember from our, we took about a year going through the Tower of Babel dispersion and all the different nations spreading out from there, giving us the people groups and ethnicities from the different isolated pockets in the world that we have today. And how even before the Tower of Babel, the descendants of Ham, Cush was the king of Uruk, and then Nimrod after him. Cush's secular name was Meskia Kashar, where Cush was part of, and then Nimrod the hunter was Enmer the hunter, Nimrod. And so through there, Cush's brother Mizraim and that family line sailed around and started the land of Egypt. Egypt doesn't call itself Egypt; they call themselves El Mazri. They're from Mizraim. This guy, Ham's son, Cush's brother, and so the pharaohs are descended through that line. They're the line of Horus, and is their emblem. And in fact, it was after they were already established in Egypt, after the Tower of Babel dispersion, they became the followers of Seth, the god of chaos. And so there's this big battle between the followers of Seth and the followers of Horus. The followers of Horus defeated the invaders and just strengthened their line. And that's when they really solidified Egypt with the dynastic line of pharaohs coming down from there. And so, but they were originally descendants of Ham. But yes, especially later on in time, to your point, as other nations are rising in power and they're doing the political alliances, the marriages of political convenience, you'll see more ethnicities from other cultures into the bloodlines and the ethnic characteristics that we commonly associate. So that will come.
A lot of times, and I could be totally wrong on this, but when you're royal, a lot of times they would think about their own bloodline and they would stay within their own bloodline.
Yeah.
Siblings.
Oh yeah, there was incest and all that to perpetuate the bloodline. That was definitely a thing too. Exactly. And you notice purebred dogs are the most medically pathetic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because my genes have these pros and these cons. If you're of the same family, you've got the same pros and cons. So adding your genes to my genes doesn't really help our kids. Yeah, but get someone whose genes are more complementary, where we make up for each other's shortcomings, then our kids come out stronger. Be fruitful, spread out, multiply, that kind of thing. Yeah, so fun stuff. The Pacific Islands and things like that, Philippines and things like that, a lot of those came from the Japheth line. And the Greeks are very actually connected to the Greeks, if you can believe it. We again touched on this the other year. The word Japan and the word Javan, Javan, Ivan, Jovan, where we get Jove for Jupiter. It's the same Greek root, actually. You just change the one letter and you get Japan. And so, the islands of the Javans and the Jovans or Greeks, there's a similarity in the cultural history that traces back. So. But as you isolate in different areas and hang around with different groups of people, you develop unique traits that are, again, there's no new information. This is very, very important for Bible truth versus evolution. There's no new information out there. It's just mixing of existing information. When when Noah's family was on the ark, everyone who wasn't on the ark, their DNA and genetic information got lost with them. So the only thing that survived came from Noah and his wife and then their kids on down from there. And so very important that we recognize we're not creating anything new. We're just mixing existing DNA info with existing DNA info, getting different combinations of pre-existing information. Nothing new under the
And
sun.
that's why, like, I get updates every so often on my DNA.
Yeah,
If they
ancestry.com
If they get more samples, then it changes.
gets a little more fine-tuned.
Yeah, it changes, yeah.
I didn't know you could they would do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As more people submit, they get more samples to go by, so they can have more information to compare.
And it's really crazy. I mean, now the amounts don't change.
Right.
Like, you know, my African DNA,
Right,
it stays in that.
right.
That percentage hasn't
Right.
changed, but the areas shift. You know, first it was the Ivory Coast and Ghana, then it was what, it was Nigeria, you know, now it's like the Congo, you know, and so it morphs as they get more. You still have, yeah, so it's weird, yeah, I want to say weird, but, her Irish DNA is so concentrated, they know the city that her ancestors are from. That's how much, you know, so, because they have more samples to, you know, to go on. So, yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
And there is actually a website that I've mentioned this, been a while. There's actually a website because as we have pharaoh corpses from the mummies, we have bodies and skeletons that go back thousands of years, and we can collect, and we are collecting DNA from them. There are websites now where you can get ancestral DNA going back these thousands of years, not just a couple hundred years to Europe and things. Yeah. So yeah, but it's all nothing new under the sun, and it all fits with the Bible. As I love to say, there's nothing that happened on earth where we don't know who was alive from the Bible at the time that happened. And so it's all connected to that. So that's Mr. Pharaoh Senuseret III, who again, he is the dad of the father and son group, hello, who are joint pharaohs at the time of the flood with Joseph. The flood of the Nile that causes the famine. We'll get to that. But so that is that. So also we're in 1695 BC, Genesis 32 is what we'll be getting to. We are also in the time frame of in old Assyria, which is a bit more sketchy. We aren't very solid on our info here. Early days of Assyria before it rises to what it will be. First capital, city of Ashur, looks to be their king right now is a guy by the name of Icunum. So here's their first capital off the Tigris River here. And as we'll see just a little north is Mosul. The ruins of Nineveh are right there as well. So that's a little further north here in Mesopotamia. You got the Euphrates coming along this way. And over here, we've got the Persian Gulf, which brings us to our next folks in the land of Isin, one of the two big city states remaining here. We've got a ruler named Ninurta. There are the remains of Isin today. Pretty much just an archaeological dig at this point. And then the other city is Larsa, where we still have their king named Gungunum. Gungunum. Yes. Yes, he has paid his dues to the NRA. So bringing it a little closer to, yeah, bringing it a little closer to home over. Let's go there. So here in the year 1695, the time frame of Genesis 32, Isaac is at home in the land of Beersheba, still not dead. He had felt he needed to bless Esau before his death. Well, that was 20 years ago, and he's still around. So he kind of jumped the gun on that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, yeah. Yes, exactly. Remember when that happened to Sinbad the comic? It was like on Wikipedia, he was dead. He's like, I'm still here. Anyway, so here's Beersheba, where Isaac is hanging out. Isaac in 1695 BC, Isaac is 156 years old and still kicking. Esau is down here in the range of Mount Seir, which is also the wilderness of Shur over here, as far as references in the Bible. Red line again showing us going directly from Jerusalem to Mount Sinai. They are directly in line with each other, as we saw from Galatians 3. Mount Sinai in Arabia corresponds to Jerusalem above. They're both at the 35-degree mark there. It's in the Jebel al-Lawz range. It's Mount, yeah, there. So down there, so that's that. So that's Isaac. So, and that's Esau down here. Esau and his twin brother Jacob are currently 96 years old. Jacob himself has come down from Haran and Paddan Aram, the area he was with Laban, where he got his 4 wives and is currently 11 sons and 1 daughter. He's come back, crossed the Euphrates, and came to the Gilead region, which is right here. We've been talking about Gilead on Wednesday nights. So here's Gilead. That's balm of Gilead in that relation to COVID-19 and all that stuff, with the current events class on Wednesdays. So it's here in the Gilead region that Laban catches up with him. They have their interactions in Genesis 31, which brings us to Genesis 32. He is still about 110 miles out from his dad in Beersheba. So he's making his way down. At this time, Judah, who is in the line of Christ, Judah is all of 9 years old. His brother Joseph is all of 6 years old. And with all of that intro, let's get to Genesis 32, where Jacob is a little nervous about reuniting with Esau after he kind of cheated him out of a couple things. And so we'll see how this all goes. Genesis 32, verse 1. Now, as Jacob went on his way, the angels of God met him. Jacob said when he saw them, "This is God's camp." So he named that place Mahanaim. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He also commanded them, saying, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen and donkeys and flocks and male and female servants. And I have sent to tell my lord that I may find favor in your sight." The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and furthermore, he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." Yeah. They didn't mention, by the way, it's all good or not. Verse 7, then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 companies. For he said, if Esau comes to the one company and attacks it, then the company which is left will escape. Great, so we got a 50-50 chance here. Cool. Yeah. Verse 9, Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your relatives, and I will prosper you. I am unworthy of all the loving kindness and of all the faithfulness which you have shown to your servant. For with my staff only I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 companies. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he will come and attack me and the mothers with the children. For you said, I will surely prosper you and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which is too great to be numbered." So he spent the night there. Then he selected from what he had with him a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, "Pass on before me," and put a space between droves. He commanded the one in front, saying, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, saying, 'To whom do you belong, and where are you going, and to whom do these animals in front of you belong?' then you shall say, 'These belong to your servant Jacob. It is a present sent to my lord Esau. And behold, he also is behind us.'" Then he commanded also the second and the third, and all those who followed the droves, saying, "After this manner you shall speak to Esau when you find him. And you shall say, Behold, your servant Jacob also is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me. Then afterward I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me." So the present passed on before him, while he himself spent that night in the camp. Now he arose that same night, took his 2 wives and his 2 maids, his 11 children, crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and he sent across whatever he had. We'll pause there. Okay, so here we go. Family reunion time. Aren't those always a joy? So, angels come to him, and we get nothing of their exchange of what happened here, only that they showed up and he recognized them. And he named the place Mahanaim. Mahanaim means two camps or two companies. So you recognize I'm camping here, but also God is here. So makes all those camping in Canaan land and all those songs kind of more fun. So, or there's a connection here. Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, country of Edom, as we saw there. Notice what he says in verse 10. I am unworthy. Hey, Nico. He says, hey, Lena. Hello, Roberta. Good to see y'all. He says in Genesis 31, watch that step there, Peter. Good to see you. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. So here in Genesis 31, Jacob getting a little nervous about reuniting with his brother Esau. Notice Jacob's heart after all that he's done and all he's been through. Genesis 32, verse 10. Here's where Jacob has arrived after all his experiences. Jacob tells God, I am unworthy of all the loving kindness and all the faithfulness which you have shown your servant. Hey, Catherine. Hey, Winter. See ya. Genesis 32:10, Jacob tells God, I am unworthy of all the loving kindness and of all the faithfulness which you have shown to your servant. For with my staff only I crossed the Jordan, now I have become two companies. I have become Mahanaim. I have become this place where God has camped. I have become this place where God has visited. God has camped with me and been with me. I'm unworthy. I don't deserve this. I came across here with nothing but my staff. I was on the run because of my deeds. I was guilty. I was what's the word I'm looking for? I was on the run. There's a word for that. Someone
On the lamb.
fugitive. There we go. Harrison Ford movie. Yeah, on the lam. Yes. Yes. What's that? Oh, yeah. MIA. Yes. Renegade stick song. Yeah, there we go. He was all that. So he recognizes that he was surviving by the skin of his teeth, and the Lord blessed him and multiplied him more than he ever imagined or deserved. And he's saying, God, you said this. God, you said that. He's not challenging God or saying, hey, God, make it worth my while, because he's reminding himself and reminding God, this is our agreement. Remember when he was in Bethel, when he said, God was here and I didn't know it. The whole Jacob's ladder thing, when he anointed the stone he slept on, said, this is the house of God, Bethel. He said, if you're with me, I am yours. And it wasn't a if, like, okay, God, you do this first. It's a since you're with me, I am yours. We're in this together. We're walking together in this. And Jacob realized that even when Laban tried to cheat him out of his wages and kept changing the rules, God still blessed him, as we saw last week. And so Jacob is recognizing it's only by the grace of God he is what he is and has what he has. And now he's got a situation he's afraid of. His brother, who he wronged more than once, is he's coming right down that path to interact with him, and he does not know because they did not FaceTime or keep in touch. And so for 20 years, well, how's 20 years of a grievance been stewing with my brother? So he's a little concerned. So let me soften the blow. Let me kind of ease him in. Hey, I'm good. So here, I'm happy to share the blessings and butter him up and all that stuff. And so on he goes. In verse 22, it says, he rose that same night, took his 2 wives, 2 maids, and his 11 children. He's actually got 11 sons right now and 1 daughter, Dinah. So technically he's got 12 kids right now. 1 more to come. We're not there yet. So any initial reactions or thoughts or questions to Jacob's thought of coming face to face with his brother and his preparations for it? Pretty much, yeah, there it is. Well, let's read the rest of the chapter. Now it gets interesting. So then Jacob was left alone, verse 24, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh, so the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So he said to him, what is your name? He said, Jacob. He said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him and said, please tell me your name. He said, why is it that you ask my name? And he blessed him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, for he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved. Now the sun rose upon him just as he crossed over Peniel, and he was limping on his thigh. Therefore, to this day, time of Moses' writing, the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. Well, that's an interesting event. So yeah, so we are now over in, let me drop down here. As Jacob is journeying along, we are over in this area, Peniel, as he's coming down from Gilead. So that's kind of the area along the Zaga River here that we're talking about. Coming across in that valley there. So he's come down from the land of Gilead, right here, and he's making his way on down. So a man wrestled with him until daybreak. And so Jacob's thigh, the socket of Jacob's thigh got dislocated in their wrestling. And then the man says, let me go, dawn is breaking. Jacob says, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. The man says, what is your name? He says, Jacob. He says, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. So this guy is apparently claiming authority to change Jacob's name, for starters. And he calls him Israel instead of Jacob. Israel is he who strives with God. To strive doesn't mean to necessarily even strive against, it's to, in your struggles, you're going along with. So, have the people of Israel struggled? Yeah. I'll never forget a little comic strip I saw. It showed a couple Hebrew slaves in Egypt and slaving away and doing stuff. And one guy says to the other, they say that every society, every culture, every nation has its time of suffering. Aren't you glad we Jews are getting ours out of the way now? Yeah. Not quite. If only, yes. And so you are one who has striven with God and with man and prevailed. How many nations, when Israel was just trying to be in peace, the family, then the nation, how many other nations have risen up in world dominance and power, persecuted the Jews, the nation of Israel, and where are they now? Where is Nazi Germany? Go back in time. Where is Babylon? Where is Assyria? What's left of Egypt? You can keep going back. Persia, Greece, Rome. They have not stood the test of time. God's people have. After 2,000 years of diaspora dispersion, they've been brought back home. We've been studying the Jubilees on Wednesday nights and all that stuff.
That's an interesting point. I had not thought about that. And then you look at other nations and countries across the years. What is sustained? America is how old? We're
Couple hundred.
We're having a pretty good run though, right? Because of, like you said, because of the vow that we made, at our founding. So that's an interesting point. I had not thought about that.
And it all goes back to the promise to Abraham, Genesis 12. Whoever blesses you, I will bless. Whoever curses you, I will curse. As America has blessed Israel, America has been blessed. As we've gone away from God and been less pro-Israel, look what happens. We're not what we once were. So yeah. So we see this is the start. I mean, it started with a promise to Abraham. God's always had a line he's preserved from Adam down. Abraham is the 20th generation of Adam. And so now from Abraham, Isaac, here to Jacob, father of little Judah and Joseph, here he is being proclaimed, you're the one who has struggled with man, even struggled with God, and God has seen you through, and you have prevailed, and you will prevail, and God's people will prevail as long as they seek him. Because remember, they weren't immune. When they departed from God, Assyria conquered the 10 tribes of Israel. When Judah departed from God, Babylon conquered the 2 tribes of Judah. And so, so these things do happen. So it's a matter of staying faithful to God. But every time God removes the hedge of protection, it's because he's trying to save us from something worse. He's letting us see how hot the stove is that we keep wanting to touch, so that we can learn, okay, that is harmful. God was right to protect us from it in the first place. We're better just sticking with God and coming back to him, because he's trying to save us from worse things that are out there, worse things that are going to happen. Just as we saw in the plagues on Egypt, there were quite a few of those where it was on Egypt, but the land of Goshen, where the land of the Israelites were, was preserved and protected and didn't experience those plagues. Doesn't mean we don't suffer. I know some have said, well, the Lord's going to come back at the beginning of the week with the end times because God wouldn't let his people suffer. I hate to break it to anyone, God lets his people suffer. It's part of the process, part of the reality of life. God's working on a bigger picture. Everything here is temporary. This world is not our home or our focus. But in the Middle Ages, 50 million of the Lord's people were murdered by church people, quote unquote church people. Religious persecution by other religions. So if he allowed 50 million to be martyred, then yeah, we're not immune from the end times. So the best thing we could do is just draw close to God and be with him. And he is always faithful to preserve us and protect us and provide for us, just as that the widow with her mites, and him talking about, even if the world hates you, keep your heart with me, endure to the end, you'll be saved. I'll be calling for you. I'll be calling my chosen, my elect. So good things to look forward to, but God is faithful even when we're faithless. Even when Jacob was all over the place, God was still working with him and calling him. I've shared some of my testimony through the class we've been doing on what is the church. Even when I was on and off relationship with him because of my inconsistencies, he was faithful when I was faithless. He knew that there was hope for little old me yet, and was still working with me to bring me along. He knew there was hope for Jacob. He knew there was no hope for Esau, sadly. And so God knows the hearts of man and women. So he knows that while there's breath, there's hope for us if we have a heart that's willing to seek him, to willing to kind of get over and past ourselves and realize there's a bigger picture going on. He's the one in control. I'm not going to put my faith in Babylon. I'm not going to put my faith in Assyria, Egypt, any of these folks. I'm not going to put my faith in the world around me. I'm going to put my faith in him and his word and his spirit, and I'm going to be okay. And so that's the place Jacob arrived at with his prayer, recognizing I'm unworthy of these blessings. You've done this in my life. I'm sticking with you. And so while I've got this new situation with Esau coming along, I'm asking you to be with me on that, because I don't know what he's going to do, but my hope is in you. So yeah. So Jacob wrestled with God. The messenger of God, this man who had authority to change his name to Israel. And so Jacob named the place Peniel right here, coming down from the Gilead region. There's the Jordan River right here. Named the place Peniel, which is called the face of God. And so he feels like this messenger of God. He said, well, he represented God. So I was up that close with God, and I lived to tell about it. So he named that place that accordingly. So with that, any thoughts, comments, questions, reactions to Genesis chapter 32 from anyone? All good there? And that's a great stopping place before we get to chapter 33. Let me take a quick look at one thing here. Do I want to read that verse just yet? Yeah, Genesis 35:10 also adds, God said to him, your name is Jacob. You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. So confirming that this was an example, representation of God here, making this known. And this is going to be a change. And we'll see how this goes from here, picking up next week in Genesis 33. So with that, I thank you for your time and attention on Sunday school. We'll stop our share, stop recording, and get ready for our song service.